It was carried out poorly, and the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups.
Yes, he's been indicted, however.
This city, Chicago, has become like a war zone.
China's President Xi Jinping declared the world's longest sea bridge officially open. The 34-mile-long Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge links three cities, part of the government's plan to create a Silicon Valley-type zone. The bridge took 9 years to build and ran billions of dollars over budget. Now that weed is legal in Canada, the South Korean embassy is reminding its citizens it's still illegal for them, wherever they are. South Korea's domestic laws apply overseas, and smoking weed carries a potential 5-year prison sentence, though it's not clear how it's enforced, meaning if any of the estimated 23,000 South Korean students in Canada want to get high, they just need to make sure their motherland isn't following them on Instagram. A video of a Parisian teen pointing a fake gun at his teacher started what French media are calling the Me Too movement for the country's public schools. Teachers are sharing their experiences being bullied by students alongside the hashtag Pas de vague, which translates to Don't Make Waves, a reflection of their complaints that schools are ignoring them and minimizing the situation. Your odds of winning tonight's $1.6 billion Mega Millions jackpot are 1 in 302,575,350. But so many people are buying tickets, lottery officials say they're running out of combinations of numbers. They estimate 75% of all combinations will be purchased by tonight's drawing. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced today that the U.S. would revoke the visas of some of the Saudi officials allegedly involved in the death of Jamal Khashoggi. Speaking in the Oval Office, President Trump offered his own personal assessment of what happened.
It was carried out poorly, and the cover-up was one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. It's very simple. Bad deal, should have never been thought of. Somebody really messed up.
But Trump said it would still be really nice to keep selling arms to Saudi Arabia. And he punted to Congress any consideration of punishing the kingdom's economy. And for now, at least, Saudi rulers don't seem too worried about that happening.
When Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman walked into Saudi Arabia's big investors conference today, he was mobbed by an adoring crowd. Even in the eye of the Khashoggi storm, the ruling class here in Riyadh is trying to give the impression that it's pretty much business as usual. Yet the government still won't allow us to film at anywhere but this rooftop. What we do know is while a lot of big-name participants did pull out of the Future Investments Initiative, hundreds of bankers and business executives still attended. In fact, Saudi Arabia managed to secure more than $50 billion worth of investments from 25 different deals in just the first day, including $34 billion alone in Saudi Aramco oil deals. Earlier today, the Crown Prince and the King also held a surprise meeting with Jamal Khashoggi's son Salah, who lives in Saudi Arabia, but has allegedly been banned from leaving the country. Saudi state TV also showcased a cabinet meeting at which ministers promised to punish those who killed Jamal Khashoggi at the consulate in Turkey. What Saudi TV didn't show was a speech today by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, blaming the Saudis for Khashoggi's death.
Cinayetin anlık bir hadiseden kaynaklanmadığı, planlı bir operasyonun ürünü olduğu yönünde elimizde güçlü emareler bulunuyor. Öldürüldüğü resmen kabul edilen bir kişinin cesedi niçin hala ortada yok? Hiç kimse tüm bu sorular cevaplanmadan meselenin üzerinin kapatılacağını aklından dahi geçirmesin.
Previously, Erdogan had promised to reveal what he called the naked truth. But in the speech, he gave no details as to how Khashoggi was actually killed, even though Turkey is widely believed to have access to some kind of recordings that confirm its claims. So why haven't they released them? One theory is that so far, Turkey has managed to ensure that this remains the biggest story in the world by leaking information on a near day-by-day basis, pushing Saudi Arabia into a corner and increasing its own leverage with the kingdom's biggest Western ally, America. A senior American intelligence official told Vice News that the US believes Erdogan does have all the primary evidence he needs to prove who killed Khashoggi and how they killed him. A State Department official with extensive knowledge in the region told us that despite the rivalry between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, Erdogan had signaled that he'd be willing to quash the release of incriminating evidence at the right price. The State Department official added, quote, "Erdogan is playing this masterfully."
California's 50th district is a Republican stronghold east of San Diego. The incumbent, Duncan Hunter, has represented the area for the last 9 years. His father, also named Duncan Hunter, did the same for almost 30 years before that. But earlier this summer, Hunter the Younger was indicted for spending more than $250,000 in campaign funds on personal expenses, including family vacations and video games. He's pled not guilty, saying the charges are politically motivated. But the allegations have made the race a lot more interesting.
Thank you all for being here. We got 16 more days, and then you guys get a new congressman for the first time in 40 years. Obviously, the race changed August 21st, right? I think Christmas came early for some of us, but...
Ammar Campa-Najjar has a lot of things going for him. He's young, he's good-looking, he's raised a lot of money, and best of all, he's running against someone facing criminal charges.
The day he was indicted, I think the world saw him for what he was, which is a crook, someone who's corrupt, someone who cares about himself.
One of the things we found while talking to people is that not a lot of people know the details of the indictment of Duncan Hunter.
I think that's what part of our job is, to explain to them what an indictment is. It's not just a parking violation. It's a criminal indictment brought down by the Department of Justice for embezzling $250,000.
It's not the first time a candidate in trouble with the law has run for office. Hunter isn't even the only indicted congressman running this year. Chris Collins is up by a few points in New York, despite denying charges of insider trading. Here in California's 50th district, Campa-Najjar is betting that a combination of look who Hunter is and look who I'm not will be enough.
Following the Duncan Hunter thing close as I possibly could. I mean, it would be an embarrassment if we said, hey, this is okay, Washington. Our politicians
make
are
an example out of it,
like
yeah.
He's still behind, but it's close. The latest polls have him within the margin of error, which is pretty remarkable given how easily Hunter has held on to his seat in the past.
This is a man who's never had to fight for his political career. His biggest strength is most people thought, up until the indictment, that he was his dad. People didn't even know that he was Hunter Jr. until they saw him on TV, blaming his wife, blaming the DOJ, blaming me, not taking personal accountability. He is the most entitled congressman that I think we have in America.
What makes you say that?
Because he inherited a seat from his dad. I've had 18 town halls. How many do you think he's shown up to? Not one.
It's not unusual for an incumbent to go light on campaigning in a district where their party has a lot of support. But Hunter has been noticeably absent. We asked for an interview, but we were told he couldn't make it work. He did make national headlines recently, though, for this ad, which taps into the old Steve Bannon playbook.
Ammar Campa-Najjar is working to infiltrate Congress. He's used 3 different names to hide his family's ties to terrorism. His grandfather masterminded the Munich Olympic massacre. Ammar Campa-Najjar, a risk we can't ignore.
I'm Duncan Hunter, and I approve this message.
Campa-Najjar is a Christian. He's condemned his grandfather, and he's cleared a security background check with the FBI. He worked in Obama's Labor Department. But it's hard to come back when they call your family terrorists.
Your grandfather was a terrorist?
So my grandfather died before I was born.
Okay, well, he's still a terrorist.
Yeah, he died before I was born.
He killed.
No, he didn't.
He's a killer and he betrayed people.
So he died before.
Hatred is not there.
No, I agree. So what about me, though?
Even harder than that, beating a Republican incumbent in a Republican stronghold. Since 1964, at least 80% of House incumbents have won re-election.
Duncan Hunter is my man.
Why is he your man?
Because they not proved nothing yet. Yeah, you can indict anybody, but they had to prove.
I'm former law enforcement, so for me, I like to wait until everything plays out.
When the indictment came out 2 months ago, did it change your mind at all? Were you hesitant?
It was troubling, but at the same time, I was highly suspicious of the timing.
Okay.
Do you understand what the indictment means and what leads to an indictment?
You just accuse somebody of something. I can accuse you that you robbed me.
So yes, he's been indicted. However, he hasn't been convicted.
The indictment's more like I accused you of robbing me, and then someone went and looked into it, and they found out that there was a lot of evidence that you robbed me, and now it's going to the court.
But there's no evidence.
Do you think that the other side indicted him?
No, I know that wasn't what happened, but I'm going to vote for him. So.
Sears filed for bankruptcy last week. The company hasn't turned a profit since 2011, but its legacy isn't just about commerce.
Sears, the modern company, started in 1894 as a catalog, a way to sell country folks things that were only available in the city. You could open up a catalog in the middle of nowhere and just see all the fashionable streets of Chicago. Sears offered credit, and this was an amazing breakthrough and a risk because they were offering credit to people they had never seen, that they knew nothing about, that may or may not be literate or have a fixed address, and yet it worked. For African Americans in particular, this was a godsend because they could buy cheaply, they could buy whatever they wanted, they could buy the same high quality goods that white people had access to. So the catalog subverted the power relation, the act of control between the white store owner and the black customer in the Jim Crow South. When black people went shopping at a store, they would have to wait until all the white people were served before them. They could only buy things that the shopkeeper was willing to sell them. They would not sell the same kinds of clothes or belongings to African Americans that they would sell to whites. And this is what the Sears catalog offered a way out of. This infuriated many store owners who would organize protests, who would throw away the catalogs if they came through the shops, that would even organize bonfires in the streets. In many of these rural areas, the general store was also the post office. This is one of the reasons why Sears encouraged people to just talk directly to the postman or to have a friend mail it in. And Sears was very open about making it widely available, not just to African Americans, but to recent immigrants. The goal of Sears was to sell to rural America, and the goal of Sears was to make money, and it made a lot of money. It certainly wasn't a social enterprise committed to destroying Jim Crow. Historically, the lack of access to the same kinds of retail opportunities as white people has been a tremendous hindrance to African Americans, whether it's in the Jim Crow South or whether it's today as many urban African Americans live in healthcare and grocery deserts. So what's interesting about the history of the catalog, which was basically the Amazon of its time, is to think about how we can use businesses to subvert other kinds of inequalities.
"28 people were shot this weekend in Chicago, and 8 of them died. Then, on Monday, 6 mourners leaving a funeral for another shooting victim were hit by gunfire. The city has one of the country's highest homicide rates. This year, 2,472 people were shot. 461 were killed. Prince Cargo was one of them.
I have 4 children. And the last one who was just shot at in Chicago is Prince Cargo. and Prince was 19 when he got killed on September 4th. Prince graduated in June of this year. We took a picture here, very fine picture. You can see here. This is us right here, father and son picture. Originally, I'm from Liberia. There was a war in Liberia, and the situation became very unbearable. And I came in this country in 2000, was able to bring my children in this country. Every parent will hope that their children are well-educated and they are career-oriented people. And he did. He started the process. He was not a person who ran the street. He was just somebody who was focused on something. I think at one point he told me he wanted to be NBA player. I said, oh, come on. He said, no, don't kill my dream. I want to be NBA player. I said, all right, that's fine. You know, your father was a soccer player in Liberia, but you chase your dream. The sky's the limit. And so, yeah, and we used to have long, good conversation. And when I think about it, it hurts.
As far as I can remember Prince, he always made me smile. This is a difficult moment for me because this is not the first funeral that I've attended for one of my students. Hopefully the last of one of my students.
We desperately need to continue whole stories of our sweet prince. I don't want more stories about young black men and death.
Yeah.
I want to hear stories of young black men and life and their loves.
Let him be great. Look at him.
Well, I first met Prince in high school, 2014, freshman year. He was so small. I remember him being real tiny. Like, it's just like, okay, there's 3 more inches, there's 2 more inches. And then, you know, first we were friends, and then it was like, okay, now you know I like you, so what you about to do about it? Like, after high school, that's when it was like, okay, now this is real, this is serious. It was just gonna be us.
This is my best friend, and I love my best friend with all my heart. Right, best friend?
Chicago police are searching for suspects in a shooting that took the life of 19-year-old Prince Cargu. He was with his girlfriend and a classmate in the 7200 block of South Bennett Sunday.
I've never thought in a million years, like, that day would have went the way it went, because it was so, like, perfect in a way. It's like homework, laughing, talking, joking, and boom, like, that's really it. We were going to drop off one of my friends. We got out the car. We were just standing there laughing, and he had said something, and I laughed. Like, I pushed, like, I was like, stop playing. And then next thing I know, I felt something, and then right after that, I heard it was just like, boom.
Cargu was shot in the head while his girlfriend suffered a leg wound. Their other friend shot in the thigh.
And I was looking at him, and he was just looking at me. We were making eye contact the whole time. I just ran over there, and I'm like shaking. I'm like, get up. And like, he wasn't moving. Like, that's all I could really remember. Like,
Cargu was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where he was later pronounced dead.
And I was just like, okay, you about to get up. And then they just like, no, he not. And then to be so, like, clueless to it, it's like, who did it? Like, no reason behind it. I don't know.
Police acknowledged that none of the 3 victims had any known gang affiliations or gang ties at all. They said they were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time.
How do we bring our children up. There should be no wrong place at the wrong time in America. But this city, Chicago, has become like a war zone. For somebody to come and shoot and kill my son and just go and have fun without being arrested, that will really bring too much grief to my heart.
I fell. No, you didn't. You did not fail. Never put that in your head. You did not fail. Not at all. If anything, the world failed us.